Among the city's lights, Lin Hao stood on the top of the office building in Gaofeng, overlooking the endless tide of cars below. This city is the stage he built with his youth and sweat. His company, Haoyin Group, is like the stars at midnight, illuminating the dreams of countless people. As the chief executive officer, Lin Hao's decisions are always precise and generous, and today's board of directors is the best evidence. In the conference room, several senior executives surrounded a huge conference table and discussed the new investment plan. Mr. Lin, the risk of overseas joint ventures this time is quite high, but it is very impressive to reply. A deputy general manager said, with admiration in his voice. Lin Hao smiled slightly, his eyes firmly as if they were rocks. The risk will always exist, but we Haoyin will never retreat. Remember, our strength lies in speed and innovation. This investment will allow us to take the lead in the market. After his voice fell, the conference room burst into a sound. Lin Hao's business genius is not a genius, but is tempered from countless failures. He once started as a junior, and gradually expanded the picture with his unyielding will. His current company's market value has reached tens of billions. At this moment, he felt that he was standing at the peak of life, and he also noticed an undercurrent. After get-off work, Lin Hao drove to the cafe in the city center, where he and Su Wanqing's fixed appointment location. Su Wanqing is his girlfriend, a gentle woman with a gentle appearance, and she has an inner body. She comes from an ordinary family, at least on the surface, but Lin Hao never delves into it. He loved her bright eyes, which always gave him endless strength when he was tired. Pushing the glass door of the coffee shop, Su Wanqing was already sitting in the corner waiting for him, and a cup of hot hooked iron was loaded on the table. "Have you stayed up late to work overtime again?" she asked lightly, reaching out and holding his hand gently. Lin Hao slid his head, his tired eyebrows slightly relaxed. "Yes, I have to keep an eye on the mobile phones recently. I heard that they are urging our partners in private." Su Wanqing's eyes flashed with a flash of grudge, but she quickly turned into a determined smile. "You are always like this, you are in a good position in everything. But remember, I still have me around you. No matter what happens, I will support you." Her words dissipated the shadow in Lin Hao's heart like a warm spring wind. They laughed at each other and talked about small things in daily life. Su Wanqing mentioned that she was learning a new language recently and preparing for future plans. Lin Hao couldn't help but admire her. After a meal, they stroll along the river. The night wind blows lightly, and the noise of the city fades away. Lin Hao suddenly remembered an anonymous email during the day. The content was blurry and full of threats, implying that someone was making a secret layout. He wanted to mention it, but was interrupted by Su Wanqing's smile. "Let's go to the bridge over there to see the night view, and hear that the moon is particularly round tonight." Her voice softly, and she took his hand and walked forward. Lin Hao followed her, and his uneasiness was temporarily suppressed, knowing that this was just a quiet moment. The city's lights reflect on the river surface, reflecting their silhouettes, like a quiet painting. During the words, they talked about their dreams for the future, and Lin Hao said, "One day, we will conquer a bigger stage together." Su Wan pointed her head clearly, her eyes flashing with an unspeakable determination. As the night became deeper, they continued to move forward, and the city's movement seemed to be in a whispering change. The next morning, the smoke in the city had not completely dissipated, and Lin Hao had already returned to the office. Last night's walk and Su Wanqing's gentle smile made him forget the shadow of the anonymous email, but it was always a ruthless person. Pushing the door of the meeting room, he glanced at the stock price chart that was jumping on the computer screen, and the red lines rolled down like a waterfall. The stock of Haoyin Group plummeted 15% overnight, and the market was filled with various rumors. Someone spread news of company financial fraud and attached documents that implying that Lin Hao embezzled public funds. The fake news spread like a virus, the media quickly followed, and investors began to sell shares in panic. A chill broke out in Lin Hao's heart, and he immediately summoned the high-level team to open a meeting. In the meeting room, the air-conditioned cold wind made the documents rustling, and everyone's faces were filled with panic. This is definitely a deliberate attack. Lin Hao said in a low voice, his eyes swept over everyone like a sharp sword. I was thinking about the email last night. Now it seems that the opponent has moved. Check our internal system and have any leaks. The vice president tightened the location and quickly adjusted the information. Mr. Lin, preliminary investigations show that our core partner, Star Electronics, seems to have turned to rivals. They suddenly withdrew their investment promise last night, citing too high market risks. But I doubt that this is someone operating behind the scenes. The meeting lasted for 2 hours, discussing the issue from financial to public relations strategies, and each plan seemed to be groping in the dark. Lin Hao's magnitude was sweating, and he knew that time would not wait for anyone. If the stock price continues to fall, the company is likely to face a breakdown. This is not only a business failure, but also a destructive blow to his years of hard work. He recalled the days when he started as a junior, when the setbacks had already ripped out his impulse, but this time the enemy was hidden in the shadows, making him feel powerless than ever before. The rival is undoubtedly the Longtai Group with similar market value. Their chief executive officer has always been famous for his own means of ignorance and has tried Tora Haotian's partner many times in the past. This time, they obviously planned carefully, first creating fake news, and then digging the wall inside, which caught Lin Hao off guard. At the end of the meeting, Lin Hao walked out of the room tiredly, and his mobile phone vibrated. It was Su Wanqing's call. She seemed to have noticed something strange from the news, with a close voice in her voice. How, I saw those reports. What are you doing now? Do you want me to come with you? Lin Hao wanted to say that everything was still under control, but he couldn't help but express his feelings. The situation is bad, Wanqing. They pulled Xinhui Electronics away, and our funding chain might break. At the phone, Su Wanqing was silent for a moment, and then said in a gentle and decisive verb, I understand that at this time, you need more than comfort. I have some resource cues, or maybe I can help. Remember the friend I mentioned before? They may be willing to provide temporary support, but we have to talk privately. Lin Hao was stunned for a moment. Su Wan always kept quiet and never took the initiative to mention any background. This time she showed a hidden determination, which made a warm current surge in his heart. He made an appointment with her to meet at a nearby cafe, and when he closed the door of the meeting room, he drove there. The sun was shining on the streets in the afternoon, and the noise of the city was still there, but Lin Hao's heart was as calm as after the storm. When he arrived at the coffee shop, Su Wanqing had already ordered his favorite, a cup of black coffee. She held his hand, with an unusual light flashing in her eyes. We won't fall down, Hao. Remember what you said last night, we're going to conquer a bigger stage. I'll walk with you step by step. Lin Hao pointed his head, his tired face stretched slowly and relaxed. They began to discuss the investment line in detail, and the city's movement continued outside the window, as if he was whispering the future turn. When Lin Hao left the coffee shop, the sunset was already setting west, and there were crowds of people getting off work on the streets of the city. He held Su Wanqing's hand and relaxed it, and the warm current in his heart was gradually replaced by the real shadow. Her promise was like a long dawn, illuminating the darkness in front of her, but as soon as she returned to her apartment, she felt the familiar loneliness flowing like a tide. The lights in the apartment were not open yet, and the reflections of neon lights outside the window jumped on the floor, reflecting the empty room. Only the official documents scattered on the sand and the data on the computer screen reminded him silently that the crisis had never passed. He took off his coat, threw his hand on the back of the chair, then poured a glass of water, and found that his hands were shaking slightly. News of the decline in stock prices is like an invisible storm, continuing to ferment in the media. The notice that popped up on the phone made him involuntarily open the stock market application, and the red curve slid down 2 points. The panic sale of investors caused the market value of Haotian Group to plummet by nearly 20%. Lin Hao sat in front of the computer and read the latest financial report. The helpless feeling in his heart was as heavy as a stone. He recalled the business decisions over the past few years. When he first collaborated with Star Electronics, he thought that he was a stable ally, but he never expected them to turn to rivals so easily. Are you too confident in ignoring the potential risks? Those omissions in the meeting and those traps carefully laid down by opponents now seem like fatal mistakes. Thoughts turned like a whirlpool, and Lin Hao rubbed his tired eyebrows. He tried to clear his head and began to investigate the betrayal of Star Electronics. When he opened the email system, he carefully checked the recent communication records and found several suspicious conversations. Starfight's responsible person had been in contact with the high-level team of Long Tai Group. These details were discovered during the meeting and were ignored due to the pressure of time. The flame of revenge was burning in his chest, and he imagined the opponent's smile and his desire for many years of light resurrected. But at the same time, Su Wanqing's gentle promise was like a slight wind, which calmed down the anger in her heart. She said she would accompany him. At that moment, Lin Hao would feel unprecedented support, and even more alone. Requesting help from her means giving up part of her self-esteem. He has always been the man who takes everything on his own, and is now stinging in the emotional tragedy. Love is originally a harbor, but it turns into a double-bladed sword in this adversity. On the one hand, it gives him strength, and on the other hand, it hits his fragile pain. As the night became deeper, Lin Hao stood up, walked to the sun and drew a smoke. The noise of the city came from below, as if reminding him that the battle was not over yet. He turned off his computer and decided to take a break first. The next step was swirling in the middle of his brain, to contact the investment friends mentioned by Su Wanqing. Although he was tired, he knew that there would be more challenges tomorrow, and the emotional trough might be the opportunity to stand up again. In the quietness of the apartment, he slowly breathed calmly and prepared to face the coming dawn. Lin Hao woke up early in the morning, and the sun shone through the gaps in the window, illuminating the official documents in the apartment. He rubbed his eyes, and his determination last night reverberated in the sea of brain. Holding the phone in his hand, he hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and cleared Su Wanqing's number. The phone soon sent her soft voice, "Lin Hao, is it you? What's wrong?" Her cleavage was like a warm current, and she dissipated the remaining fatigue. He said simply, "I want to see you," and made an appointment to meet in a calm coffee shop in the city center. The store is located near the Zhuang district, and outside the window is a constant stream of cars, which can separate some of the noise of the city, which is suitable for their conversation. When arriving at the coffee shop, Su Wanqing was already sitting in the corner. She was wearing a simple dress, her hair was loosely spread over her shoulders, and a gentle smile on her face. As Lin Hao approached, she stood up and hugged him lightly. At that moment, he felt the tide of loneliness recede, replaced by a long-lasting sense of security. After they sat down, they ordered 2 cups of hot coffee, and the steam rose up in the mouth of the cup, as if connecting their breaths. "I kept thinking about what you said last night." Lin Hao opened his mouth, his voice slightly shook his sand. "I originally wanted to carry it myself, but now I really need your support." Su Wanqing reached out to cover his hand, her eyes firmly remained gentle. "I know it's not easy, Lin Hao. You have always been so strong, but sometimes, letting others help you is not a weakness." As the conversation gradually deepened, Su Wanqing began to share more stories about herself. She said lightly, "In fact, I have never told you. I am the daughter of the Su Group. My father has been engaged in real estate and investing for many years, and our family's network is spread throughout the city." Lin Hao was slightly stunned, raised his head, and his eyes were shocked. He always knew that Su Wanqing had an extraordinary background, but he never expected that she was such a daughter. She continued, "I chose to live a low-key life to avoid complicated relationships, but now, I don't want to be confused anymore. Your crisis is also my crisis. I can use the family's resources to help you contact reliable investors, and even provide internal information." Her words were like a ray of dawn, illuminating the darkness in Lin Hao's heart. He felt an unprecedented confidence swelling up to his heart, and his original anxiety dissipated like a smoke. They began discussing preliminary collaboration plans. Lin Hao opened the notes on the phone and analyzed the weaknesses of Xinhui Electronics. "Their cooperation with the Long Tai Group looks stable, but if we can find evidence to prove their internal transactions." Su Wan pointed out and added, my father's network can help in investigations. I can arrange a meeting to let you contact some key figures. We start with financial loopholes and then gradually counteract. During this conversation, Lin Hao's inner conflict gradually changed. He had slammed for help from her, but now, the flame of revenge is no longer the burning of loneliness, but the power of intercourse with love. As the night in the city gradually faded, the lights outside the cafe began to light up, and their conversation became more passionate. When leaving the coffee shop, Lin Hao held Su Wanqing's hand and his steps were very light and fast. They walked on the streets, and among the crowds, he felt a new force flowing in his body. Su Wanqing leaned on his shoulder and said in a low voice, "This is just the beginning, we will go on together." Lin Hao pointed at the head, planning the next step in his brain. Although the challenge is still ahead, this time his company made him believe that the road to rebellion is no longer so lonely. The night wind blew lightly, and they continued to move forward, and the city's movements seemed to be in conjunction with their rhythm. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing walked on the streets in the city center, with the night wind slightly swaying, and the street lights cast a warm light. Their hands are tight and the determination in their hearts is as stable as the movement of the city. Su Wan turned to look at him, with a tenderness in her eyes. "Let's go to my villa, it's more intimate there, we can discuss the plan." Lin Hao agreed and a warm current surged in his heart. The past lonely months seemed to have gone far away, replaced by this tacit understanding of moving forward together. They soon arrived at a high-end residential area on the outskirts of the city. Su Wanqing's villa was hidden in the green, and the environment was calm and private. When you open the door, the indoor lights are soft, and the air is filled with a faint tea fragrance. Su Wanqing led Lin Hao into the bookroom, where there was a large desk. Next to it were several thick business books. She took out several documents from the drawer and said lightly, "This is the draft cooperation agreement for our family. I have already prepared it, and the content includes resource sharing and confidentiality terms." Lin Hao took the document and read it in detail, and felt a sense of gratitude in his heart. He once thought that the road to revenge was a lonely army battle, but he never expected that such a gentle woman would become his ally. They sat down and began to analyze the financial loopholes of Starlight Electronics in detail. Lin Hao opened the notebook and pointed to the previous record, saying, "From the public information, their capital chain has problems, especially the transaction with the Long Tai Group, which seems to involve some opaque internal transfers. If we can prove that this is a violation, it can hit their foundation." Su Wanqing approached and clicked on the head to add, "My father's network can help. I have contacted a reliable investigator who can adjust some internal information. In addition, I can introduce several investors who are interested in risk investment, but we need to provide us with a clear evidence." Her voice was gentle and firm, which made Lin Hao feel an unprecedented force. He reached out and held her hand and said lightly, "Thank you, Wanqing. With your help, I am no longer alone." During the discussion, their eyes were exchanged in a flash, and the air seemed to be filled with invisible sparks. When Su Wanqing stood up and poured 2 cups of hot tea to Lin Hao, she said lightly, "All this is not only for revenge, but also for our future happiness." Lin Hao looked at her, with tenderness in his eyes. He stood up and hugged her, feeling her body warmth, and the flame of revenge and love in his heart became purer and stronger. They signed their names at the agreement, and at that moment, the secret alliance was officially established. Su Wanqing smiled and said, "Next, we will start the investigation. I will arrange a meeting tomorrow so you can see those investors." However, during the conversation, they also realized the potential risks. Urban commercial venues are like a huge spider network, and any negligence may bring back the consequences. Lin Hao said with a brow, "There may be more powerful behind Xinghui Electronics, so we have to act carefully." Su Wanqing held his hand tightly and comforted softly, "We will face it together, no matter what happens." It was late at night, and they snuggled up on the sand, planning for the next action. The noise of the city seemed to be far away, and their cooperation and feelings were quietly released on this quiet night. The next day will be a new step, but at this moment, they are immersed in this warm company. The next morning, the sun shone through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa into the bookroom. Lin Hao rubbed his eyes and stood up from the sand. Last night's discussion was still in the brain. He turned to see that Su Wanqing was already preparing breakfast in the kitchen, and the simple bread and coffee spread out the homely warmth. She was wearing a light dress, her hair was slightly dispersed, which showed the natural charm. Lin Hao walked over, hugged her waist lightly, and said in a low voice, "Good morning, Wanqing. Last night's plan made me not sleep well all night, but with you, everything was feasible." Su Wanqing turned around, smiled at the corner of her mouth, and gave him the coffee. "We have something big to do. The meeting this afternoon is the key, let's eat something first. Investors are ready, we have to let them see our determination." They quickly used up their breakfast, changed into formal clothes, and drove to a high-end club in the city center. The club is located in a bustling business district, and the glass curtain reflects the busy scene of the city. In the conference room, several well-dressed investors have already been in place. They are invited by Su Wanqing through the family network, and each represents a great amount of money and influence behind them. Su Wanqing took Lin Hao's hand and introduced first, "This is Mr. Lin Hao. He has an in-depth analysis of the financial structure of Xinhui Electronics. The focus of our discussion today is how to integrate resources and collect evidence to expose their internal transaction problems." Lin Hao pointed at the head, and a sense of confidence in his heart. The past setbacks had made him isolated and helpless. Now, this gentle woman not only provides a platform, but also makes him feel shoulder to shoulder. At the beginning of the meeting, Lin Hao opened the notebook and projected the data chart he compiled. From the public financial report, there is a clear opacity in the transaction between Star Electronics and Longtai Group. He pointed to a series of digital explanations. These internal transfer funds seem legal, and may actually involve money laundering or illegal operations. If we can obtain certification through reliable pipelines, we can prove that this is a systematic problem. Investors were sensible, and one of them interjected, "There is a big risk, and there is a big deal behind Star Electronics behind it. Strength, once it is seen, our investment may be reported." Su Wanqing answered the phone and his voice was calm and determined, "This is why we need to strengthen confidentiality measures. I have contacted the family's investigators, and they will verify these transaction details from internal channels. If you are willing to cooperate, we can share resources and ensure that every step is stable." Her eyes swept past everyone on the scene, bringing a stable force. During the discussion, the interaction between Lin Hao and Su Wanqing naturally revealed a sweet feeling. When Lin Hao explained the financial loophole, Su Wanqing would unintentionally touch his arm and encourage him. When she shared the advantages of the family network, Lin Hao responded with a gentle look, as if saying that this is not only business, but also their common battle. During the meeting, they took a short break. Su Wan gave him a glass of water and said in a low voice, "You performed very well, Lin Hao. Seeing you so devoted, my heart was warm." Lin Hao held her hand and replied, "It was because of you that I could get to this point." This kind of detailed communication made a little romantic spark in the tight atmosphere. However, potential risks are always like a shadow. While expressing their interest, investors also warned, "City shopping malls are like an invisible battle, and the enemy may have been monitoring us. We must ensure that communication is safe and avoid any leaks." Lin Hao agreed and immediately suggested, "We can set up encrypted communication channels and divide them into different ways." The testimony was collected in stages. "We will start with a small-scale investigation and gradually expand it." Su Wanqing added, "We will arrange for investigators to provide preliminary reports this week, and we will evaluate the next step." The meeting ended in an orderly discussion, and everyone reached a preliminary consensus, and investors expressed their support. When they walked out of the meeting, Xiang was sinking westward. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing were walking on the street, holding hands, feeling the movements of the city. When they reviewed the results of the meeting, Su Wan said lightly, "This is just the beginning, but with your analysis and everyone's help, our plan will be more stable. When you go back to the villa tonight, we will continue to go through the details." Lin Hao smiled and hugged her. The revenge and love in his heart formed a stronger momentum. the noise of the city seemed to have written an unfinished chapter for their cooperation. On the way back to the villa, Lin Hao and Su Wanqing were sitting in the car, and the city lights were flashing outside the window. Their conversation extends from the details of the meeting to the future plan. Su Wanqing's voice is gentle and determined. Today's discussion makes me more clear that our steps must be precise and without error. Lin Hao held the direction plate and replied, "Yes, I have sorted out more data in my brain, and I will analyze it in depth when I get home." The car drove into the villa area, and the night was getting colder. This residence that once witnessed his low point is now full of hope. After arriving at the villa, they first changed into light home clothes. Su Wanqing walked into the kitchen and prepared a simple and romantic dinner. The light shines on the dining table, with fresh salads, grilled fish and red wine. She turned to Lin Hao and said, "Come and help me hold it. This is a bonus for us." Lin Hao walked over, circled her waist lightly, and felt the warmth of her body. "Wanqing, thank you. If everything about today was not with you, I might still be exploring in the dark." His words were filled with gratitude, and his eyes revealed a deep softness. After dinner, they moved to the book room. Lin Hao opened his computer and projected the latest financial data charts, which he urgently sorted out after the meeting. From Xinhui Electronics transaction records, their capital transfer not only involves money laundering, but may also hide stock manipulation. He pointed to the curve on the screen to explain, "If we can prove these, we can hit their core. But the risks are huge, so I suggest strengthening security measures, such as encrypting all communications and monitoring the surrounding environment." Su Wanqing sat aside, listening carefully, and picking up her phone and quickly sending messages to the family's investigators. "I have arranged that they will provide preliminary evidence within 2 days, starting from internal channels. Don't worry, I will keep everything confidential." Her words were calm and revealed that she was unmovable. During the discussion, the two stopped at a short time and Su Wanqing gave Lin Hao a cup of hot tea. "You are too involved, Lin Hao. Remember to take care of your body." Her fingers gently touched the back of his hand. The action was natural and secret, which made Lin Hao's heart beat faster. He held her hand and said with sincerity, "Wanqing, from the moment I broke down, I thought everything was over. But you appeared, not only bringing resources, but also hope. I love you, not because of your identity, but because you let me see that love can become a power in adversity." A tingling appeared on Su Wanqing's face. She leaned over and kissed him lightly. "We are partners, Lin Hao. Your mission makes me stronger, let's go on together." At this moment, the air in the book room seemed to be filled with sweet sparks, and the plan to revenge was closely related to their emotions. However, when it was late at night, a sudden phone call sound broke the silence. Su Wanqing's investigator called and his voice was low. "Miss, our preliminary investigation has been alert. The Xinhua people may have noticed the silence, and they sent someone to monitor the surroundings of the villa. Be careful, don't be tempted first." After Lin Hao heard this, he immediately stood up, pulled the window to check the surroundings. "Diet, they act so quickly," he said, but there was no panic in the voice, but it was even more certain. Su Wan said calmly, "Don't worry, we have a plan. I will send additional security tomorrow, and you continue to analyze the data. We are going step by step, this is just a small episode." They hugged each other, strengthening each other's mutual trust, and this small-scale crisis has made their alliance more unbreakable. In the night, the lights in the villa are still warm. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing continue to organize the plan, and the noise of the city is whispering outside, waiting for their next action. In the villa at night, the lights were softly on the floor of the book room. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing were still sitting in front of the computer. The police on the phone made the air more tight. They quickly separated from their hugs. Lin Hao stood up, walked to the window, and opened a detailed look at the darkness outside. Under the street lights, everything seemed calm, but the hidden shadow made him feel alert. "They may have set up monitoring devices around," said Lin Hao, his voice calming down. "We have to move immediately and can't let them get ahead." Su Wan pointed her head clearly, her phone still in her palm, and a just-in-one call record was displayed on the screen. She took a deep breath and turned around and picked up the notebook on the table. I will contact the family's security team. They have professional equipment that can strengthen our defense in a short period of time. Lin Hao began to sort out financial data, and at the same time opened an encrypted communication software to summon his core team members. Although it was late at night, he knew time was the key. Starlight Electronics' techniques are becoming more and more intense. From the previous money-washing suspicion to the current monitoring, they are definitely trying our trump card, he said, projecting the latest chart, and the waves on the curve clearly show the opponent's money flow. These data can be used to reverse their weaknesses. If shareholding manipulation is proven, we can report to the supervisor, but we must first ensure our safety. Su Wanqing sat aside, quickly entered the instructions, and sent a message to her family investigator. She raised her head and looked at Lin Hao with a calm look. I have arranged 2 groups of security personnel, and they will arrive in 1 hour. At the same time, I let people from the internal channels investigate the core figures of Xinghu and find out their loopholes. Her words were filled with the gentle determination, which made Lin Hao's heart slightly calmer. In order to deal with the potential surprise, they decided to check the surroundings of the villa first. Lin Hao held a small detector and started scanning from the door. Su Wanqing followed him, and the beam of the flashlight broke through the darkness. There is a wireless signal interference here, Lin Hao pointed to the red light on the detector and said, they may have installed a listener. Su Wanqing responded immediately, I will let the security team block the signal and set up a counter-surveillance system. During this process, their physical language naturally showed tacit understanding. Lin Hao occasionally stopped to confirm Su Wanqing's safety, and she gently held his arm and conveyed a soundless encouragement. The pressure of the crisis made their relationship more tight. Lin Hao turned his head and looked at her and said in a low voice, Wanqing, thank you for always standing by me. This is not just a plan, this is the battle we face together. Su Wanqing smiled slightly and leaned on his shoulders and leaned gently on his shoulders. We are not alone, Lin Hao. Your courage makes me more powerful, and let me resolve all of this together. When the preservation team arrived, it was almost dawn. They quickly set up a monitoring camera and a police system around the villa, and Lin Hao brought the team to analyze the data and formulated a preliminary countermeasure plan. We can create some financial information to induce them to reveal their brinks, Lin Hao explained at the meeting. At the same time, use Wanqing's resources to attack their equity structure from the inside. Su Wanqing added, my family's information network has been the key figures that locked them up and were soon able to provide evidence. We had to do it step by step and couldn't let them bite back. After a night of busyness, they finally turned the crisis into opportunities, and data analysis made the strategy of reverse rotation clearer. When the first dawn shone into the villa, the 2 returned to the bookroom, drank hot coffee, and continued to make detailed plans. The hustle and bustle of the city have awakened, and Lin Hao and Su Wanqing's eyes are filled with new determination. Their alliance is even more unbreakable this night, waiting for the next action to arrive. With the first eldest son, Yang Guang entered the library room of the villa, Lin Hao and Su Wanqing sat in front of the computer and continued to dig deeper into the data. Their eyes were filled with fatigue, and the crisis warning the night before made all actions even more urgent. Lin Hao opened the projector and enlarged the financial curve of Starlight Electronics on the wall. The ups and downs of the fine lines clearly show the opponent's financial loopholes. Wanqing, we need a more precise information, he said, his voice low and focused. Have your family network locked their core figures? We have to string these data together to find out their softness. Su Wanqing clicked her head and quickly slid her tablet, tuning out the latest file from the family investigator. Yes, I just received the report, she replied, vocalizing, Star Wang's Vice President Li Myung-cheol is suspected of internal transactions. We have evidence that he manipulated the transfer of shares. If we can prove this, we can sway their foundation. She projected the file and the 2 examined the dense transaction records together. Lin Hao's eyebrows slightly raised, and he picked up his pen and drew a simple process picture on the whiteboard. Okay, Let's start here. Create a financial message that will induce them to bite. For example, we pretend to expose the stock information in my hands, making them think we're weak so that they can force them to reveal the gap. Lin Hao summoned his core team members to attend the meeting through encrypted communication software connection. Several members of the team have been waiting online, and their voices are transmitted from the computer speakers, full of tight energy. Everyone listened. Lin Hao spoke, his temperament as he was as steady as ever. Starball's attack is getting stronger and stronger, and we can no longer be defended. According to the latest information, we will launch a counterattack. Wanqing provided the key evidence. We must integrate it and formulate a financial trap. Su Wanqing sat aside, supplementing it at the same time. I will ensure that our security forces are in place. There are 2 teams around to watch, and I have arranged an additional anti-monitoring system to avoid any leaks. Her words made the team members point out that everyone started to divide the work and cooperate. Some were responsible for data damage, and some were analyzing the risks. The meeting was held until noon, and the air in the room seemed to be tightening. Lin Hao stood up, walked to the whiteboard, and explained the strategy in detail. We first released a fake fund flow, which made Li Mingzhi think that we were seeking external investment, so he might be eager to make a move. We will use Wanqing's information network to follow his actions. Once he showed his foot, we will submit a certificate to the supervisor. Su Wanqing looked at him, with a glimmer of pride in her eyes. Lin Hao, your analysis is always so precise, she said lightly. With you leading the head, I think we can definitely turn the board. He turned his head and smiled at her, reaching out and holding her hand gently. It's not me alone, Wanqing, it's us together. This battle made me more clear that your company is the greatest power. At that moment, the atmosphere in the book room changed from tight to warmth. Their eyes were as if they found a quietness in the hustle and bustle of the city. In the afternoon, they continued to make detailed plans. Su Wanqing contacted the family's security team leader and confirmed the operation's security measures. I have sent additional staff to the key points to ensure that our operations will not be interfered, she said, and Lin Hao pointed to express his praise. The team members have completed preliminary data creation online, and virtual financial messages are about to be released. As everything gradually took shape, Lin Hao felt an unprecedented sense of confidence. This is just the beginning, he said to Su Wanqing. Once we succeed, we can get closer to the core of Starweight. When the sun sets in the west, they stop working at the side of their hands and walk to the sun to breathe in fresh air. The city lights began to light up. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing leaned against the column, and their shoulders were touching each other's lightly. They knew that the road to reversal was still long, but the tacit understanding at this moment made them full of expectations and ready to face the next challenge. The next morning, the sun shone out from the fog of the city. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing stood on the villa platform, feeling the warm tacit understanding last night. Their eyes turned from the street view of the lights and fire to each other, and decided to do a plan the night before. Wanqing, we can't drag it anymore, Lin Hao said, with a gentleness in his voice. Today I will sneak into the star corner and take down those certificates. Su Wanqing pointed her head and responded with a firm look. I have prepared for the decoration and support, everything depends on our tacit understanding. They quickly changed into carefully prepared business outfits. Lin Hao transformed into an experienced business consultant, and Su Wanqing played his assistant. With the relationship between the Su Wanqing family, they easily gained the opportunity to enter the Xinhui Electronics headquarters. At the entrance of the office building in the morning, people came and the security guards patrolled the rules closely, but the two of them calmly passed the inspection points. After entering the hall, Lin Hao said to Su Wanqing in a low voice, "Remember, keep it natural. We have to get close to Li Mingzhi's office." She shook his hand lightly, conveying soundless encouragement. In the corridor, they cleverly avoided the additional monitors, pretended to attend a meeting, and gradually approached the deputy president's area. Lin Hao's analytical ability came to use this moment. He quickly glanced around and noticed an unblocked computer end. "This is our chance," he said in a short voice, bringing Su Wanqing into a meeting room. Su Wanqing immediately opened her hidden communication device and contacted the family's support team to ensure that external monitoring was in security. "I've made them ready for real-time work," she said, with a steady and confident word. However, the plan is not a breeze. When Lin Hao tried to crack Li Mingzhi's communication system, a security guard suddenly appeared and suspected their identities. The tight atmosphere spread instantly, and Lin Hao's brain flashed through countless variables. He quickly entered the code and created a fake visiting permit. "Keep calm," he said to Su Wanqing calmly, while using his eyes to signal her to prepare for change. Su Wanqing stood up calmly and used her social skills to deal with the security staff, saying that they were invited to ask. This moment of tacit understanding resolved the crisis and allowed the security guard to retreat temporarily. Taking advantage of this period of time, Lin Hao successfully deposited and retrieved Li Mingzhi's records. The dense transaction data emerged, showing more inside information, not only the transfer of shares, but also involved in undisclosed overseas fund washing. "Wanqing, look at this," Lin Hao said in a low voice, "this is the evidence we need, which can completely hinder their foundation." Su Wanqing looked closely, with a flash of praise and concern in her eyes. "You are so bad, Lin Hao," she said lightly, "with you here, I think any challenge can be overcome." At that moment, their eyes met, their heartbeats seemed to be synchronized, and the revenge and the warmth of love formed an invisible force. In the afternoon, they quietly left the headquarters and encrypted the collected data back to the team. In the evening, when they returned to the villa, they sat in the book room and carefully reviewed the action. Lin Hao integrated the new certificate into the plan. Su Wanqing poured him a cup of hot tea and said, "Today's adventure makes me more clear that we are not only partners, but also mutual support." Lin Hao held her hand and smiled lightly. "This is just the beginning, Wanqing. These certificates will make us closer to victory." The night became deeper, and they continued to discuss the next strategy, with confidence in their hearts as bright as the city lights, ready to face future challenges. The next morning, the sun shone through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa into the bookroom, and Lin Hao and Su Wanqing continued to sort out the certificates obtained the night before. The table was filled with encrypted files, and the air was filled with the aroma of coffee. Their discussion continued from late at night to early morning. Lin Hao rubbed his tired eyes and said, "Wanqing, we need more support. Although these data are key, they have to rely on reliable allies to convert into actions." Su Wanqing got up, picked up her phone, and used her family's network to quickly send an invitation. She chose a secret meeting in the city center, which was once a private gathering for her family, and the environment was peaceful and safe. In the afternoon, the meeting room of the meeting room continued to see people. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing sat in the main seat. Next to them were several family allies and trusted business partners, including Su Wanqing's uncle and Lin Hao's former investment partners. They surrounded a long table, and Li Mingzhi's transaction records were projected on it. Lin Hao cleared his throat and began to lead the discussion. "Everyone, this is the certificate we obtained from the Starring headquarters. These data not only show the transfer of equity, but also involve overseas fund washing. If we can strengthen its legal effect, it can make Li Mingzhi's plan collapse." His voice was steady and full of professional insights, allowing the people on the scene to focus involuntarily. Su Wanqing added from the side and used her daughter to coordinate resources. "I have contacted the family's lawyer team, and they can help us convert these certificates into official documents. At the same time, I adjusted some funds to deal with potential risks." She said she distributed data, and glanced at Lin Hao from time to time, conveying unspoken encouragement. Allies began to share their opinions, and one investment partner pointed out, "Li Mingzhi's network is very wide, and we must consider his possible countermeasures. We suggest we establish a response plan first, such as dispersing the storage locations of evidence." Another analyzed, "From these transaction data, their money-washing pipeline is weak, and we can increase the pressure through international cooperation." The atmosphere of the meeting was very hot, and Lin Hao led everyone to disassemble each detail. He drew up a plan chart on the whiteboard to mark the next action. First, submit the certificate to the relevant supervisory agency, and at the same time publish the media to expose it. Su Wanqing noticed that Lin Hao's eyebrows were slightly frowning, and then said lightly, "Lin Hao, let's face it together. This is not only a revenge, but also a sound of righteousness." Her words warmed his heart, and the eyes of the two of them met. At that moment, the tightness in the room seemed to be softened. The addition of allies brings new insights, allowing the original secret action to move towards a more proactive plan. They decided to set up a small group to follow up Li Mingzhi's movements and prepare to start the official attack next week. As the discussion deepened, the sunset outside the meeting continued. Everyone started to conclude, and Su Wanqing's uncle finally said, "This plan is very comprehensive, and our team will support it with all our strength." Lin Hao pointed his head and the meeting ended in a peaceful atmosphere. When they left the club, Lin Hao and Su Wanqing were walking on the way home, and the night wind gently brushed their faces. She held his arm and said in a low voice, "Today's meeting made me more confident that our efforts will not be in vain." Lin Hao shook her hand tightly and responded with a smile, "Yes, Wanqing, with you and me, our road will become more and more stable." They walked into the night and continued to plan every step of the future in detail. The determination and love in their hearts were like a light of a light, illuminating the road ahead. The next morning, Lin Hao and Su Wanqing did not stay for much time after returning to the villa. They quickly turned the conclusion of the meeting into action and called the newly formed group. The lights in the bookroom were still lit, and the table was filled with information that had been extended from last night, and now, there was a preliminary report from the Su Wanqing Family Information Network. Lin Hao was wearing a simple shirt and glanced over the documents with a fixed look, saying, "We can't drag it anymore. Those overseas transaction records are keys and must be digged deep." Su Wanqing sat beside him, her fingers slid over the screen of her tablet computer. She used her family's resources and had already adjusted several professional visitors and information experts to join the group. Their team penetrated Li Mingzhi's overseas trading network through encrypted channels, which was a complicated financial mystery involving multiple offshore accounts and money-washing channels. The group of members was scattered at different locations to operate. Lin Hao chose to handle a line by himself, a potential lineman, who was Li Mingzhi's former subordinate and is now hiding in an overseas bank. Su Wanqing was accompanying him to a safe virtual meeting room. She arranged the itinerary with her family's private aircraft to ensure that everything was low. The aircraft landed in a neutral city at noon. They put on their ink glasses and walked into a hidden coffee shop. When Lin Hao faced the lineman, he showed his determination. Lin Ren is a middle-aged man with a full of vigilance. He said in a low voice, "What do you want to know?" "Those transactions are not simple." Lin Hao looked straight into his eyes. His temperament was calm and sturdy. "With pressure, we have proven Li Mingzhi's money-washing behavior. If you cooperate, we can protect you." During the tight conversation, Su Wan sat quietly aside, and she encouraged Lin Hao with her eyes from time to time. When the lineman began to reveal the details and revealed how Li Mingzhi used the offshore company to transfer funds, she quickly recorded it. This process made the two people's emotions more closely connected. Lin Hao felt Su Wanqing's gentle support, and she was attracted by his leadership. During a short rest, she gently held his hand and said in a whisper, "No matter how dangerous it is, we will face it together." Lin Hao's mouth slightly raised and replied, "With you, I'm not afraid of anything." At that moment, the noise of the coffee shop seemed to be blurred, and their eyes were like a warm stream, relieving the pressure around them. However, when they were about to get more evidence from the lineman, the opponent's rebellion was like a shadow. Suddenly, a group of unidentified people entered the coffee shop, which was obviously Li Mingzhi's minions. They tried to get rid of the data, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. The group had internal opinions. Some people claimed to escape immediately, while the other insisted on protecting the evidence, which led to short-term conflict. Lin Hao responded quickly. He pushed Su Wanqing out, pressed her in front of her, and shouted to the group members, "Cold. Make sure everyone is safe first, and you must not lose." A small physical confrontation broke out, and Lin Hao fought with one of them. His actions were determined by the knowledge that years of commercial wars were trained to resolve the crisis. Su Wanqing used family training skills to help the group maintain stability. In the end, they successfully retreated and transferred the key data to the security server. After the conflict ended, everyone panted and left the scene. Lin Hao checked whether Su Wanqing was injured. She smiled and said, "I'm fine, what about you?" He hugged her lightly and said, "We did it." On the plane back, they looked at the new certificates, which not only consolidated the original plan, but also provided more medicine for the walk. Their determination is even more certain, and their love quietly unfolds in this adversity, like a star in the night sky guiding them forward. When they returned to the villa, it was already dark, and they began to prepare for the next plan. The desolation in their hearts made this road of revenge more realistic. After returning to the villa, it was already dark. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing sat under the soft lights of the bookroom, and information that had just moved to the security server was scattered on the table. They should have continued to analyze the evidence that exposed Li Mingzhi's money-washing pipelines, but the fatigue and tight sensation filled the room with a difficult silence. Lin Hao stared at the computer screen, his fingers knocked on the desktop without any intention, and his thoughts couldn't help but hang out to the chaotic scene in the coffee shop. Su Wanqing poured a cup of hot tea and gave it to him. Her gentle eyes tried to dispel his nervousness from his eyebrows. "We've taken a big step forward," she said. "These evidences will leave Li Mingzhi without a chance." Lin Hao took the teacup and did not drink it immediately. He raised his head, his eyes flashed with a piece of self-responsibility. "Wanqing, I'm wondering, is this all too dangerous? If I hadn't been determined, you wouldn't have to take this risk." His voice was low, carrying the invisible pressure in the urban forest, like the shadow of a high-rise building, covering them without any moment. The past destruction made him a lonely habit. He always took on everything himself. Now Su Wanqing's intervention has made him begin to doubt his decision. All Li Mingzhi's rebellion affected her. How could he deserve the trust of her family? This self-responsibility was like a group of clouds, scattering in his heart. Su Wanqing heard his words, and a complex feeling surged in her heart. She sat down, held his hand, and tried to snatch it. "How, you're not fighting alone, we're together. My family resources are for this time." Her words were gentle and calm, and she unconsciously touched Lin Hao's pain. He suddenly pulled his hand back, stood up, and paced back and forth in the bookroom. "But you have your responsibility, Wanqing. You are the daughter of the Su family. If this battle fails, not only will I lose everything, but you may also be connected by the family. I can't let you give up everything about you for my revenge." There was a hidden anger in his words, not for her, but for his own powerlessness. This is a common test in urban life. In the high-pressure business battlefield, people often wander between love and ambition, which makes it difficult to balance. Su Wanqing was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that a warm dialogue would turn to such a sharp sound. She stood up and faced him, with a flash of pain in her eyes. "Do you think I don't know the risks? From the moment I chose to be with you, I have given up the expectations of some families. But this is not a single victim. Lin Hao, I love you, not because of sympathy, but because you let me see the real trouble." Her voice trembled slightly, revealing the thorn in her heart. She was worried that this revenge would be like an invisible rope, tightening their relationship more and more. She also understood that escaping would only make the problem tiring. The city lights came in through the windows, reflecting their faces, making this moment full of real pressure. Lin Hao stopped walking, took a few deep breaths, and tried to revise the emotions. He turned around and his eyes softened. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to fight. I'm just afraid of losing you." This sentence was like a crack, causing their defense to collapse in an instant. Su Wanqing walked forward and hugged him lightly. The two stood quietly, allowing each other's warmth to comfort. In this peaceful villa space, although their dialogues are a little conflicted, they are like a necessary tempering, opening up hidden trust problems. Lin Hao realized that his loneliness was not Su Wanqing's fault, but that he needed to learn to rely on others. During this process, Su Wanqing further confirmed her choice. Love is not about escaping reality, but about facing each other. After a moment, they returned to the table and revisited the data. Although there was still a lot of trouble in his heart, Lin Hao held Su Wanqing's hand and said, "Let's go on together and no longer hide these concerns." This exchange made their emotions more tight, like a line of light in the urban night sky, injecting new power into the next deployment. They began to discuss walking, preparing for integration certificates, and making more detailed preparations for the positive decisions, and their determination quietly grew in this warmth. The next morning, the sunlight in the villa passed through the rosy to the bookroom. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing sat on the table. The emotional tempering of last night seemed to inject new energy into them. On the computer screen, the evidence files that exposed Li Mingzhi's money-washing pipes were flashing cold light, and Lin Hao's fingers knocked on the keyboard. His eyes were no longer pure loneliness, but a shared determination. Su Wanqing poured 2 cups of coffee and gave him one of them. The fragrance spread in the air, as if reminding them that the battle in this urban forest is no longer a lonely war. "Okay, let's take a look at this information," said Su Wanqing, who opened a file with Li Mingzhi's financial records showing a series of suspicious transfer records. "My family resources can help track these sources of funds. We can contact my father's business allies, who are very influential on the news network." Her voice was gentle and professional. Lin Hao heard it, and his self-responsibility gradually turned into gratitude. He responded and began to analyze the details of those evidences. These money-washing pipelines are mainly transferred through offshore companies, involving several companies that are posing for shells. If we can prove these links, we can directly hit his core. Lin Hao's business insights were unreliable at this moment. He quickly listed the key points and did not forget to narrow the distance with Su Wanqing. "Your help makes everything feasible, Wanqing." They spent hours integrating data, and Su Wanqing used her family network to send encrypted messages to reliable allies. One of them is a well-known lawyer she met in the Chamber of Commerce and can provide legal advice. Lin Hao was responsible for formulating a strategic plan, and he drew a simple process diagram covering information monitoring and potential solutions. "We first put a monitoring of his communication to ensure there is no loophole," said Lin Hao. "But we have to be careful. Li Mingzhi's men may have been monitoring us." Just as they discussed the key part, a mobile phone shock broke the silence. Su Wanqing picked up her phone and her eyebrows were slightly raised. It was the message from the family assistant. "They found that someone was trying to check my story." This sudden challenge made the atmosphere in the room tighten, and Lin Hao clenched his fists. Li Mingzhi's intercourse activity was faster than we expected. Su Wanqing took a deep breath and tried to keep the picture calm. "This is expected, we can't panic. Let me contact the internal security team to strengthen our protection." She turned around and operated the computer, adjusted their communication encryption, and Lin Hao looked at her, and a warm feeling surged in her heart. Although the pressure of the city was like a shadow, at this moment, he realized that love was their shield. He stood up and hugged her shoulder lightly. "We will survive, together." This speech was not only comforting, but also a promise, making their emotions even more impoverished in the crisis. After this little episode, they continued to improve the plan, classified the certificates and were ready to submit them to their allies early next week. Lin Hao suggested to test a small operation first, such as providing some evidence to the media anonymously to test Li Mingzhi's reaction. Su Wanqing agreed and arranged the next meeting. The two discussed the details of the session. The lights in the bookroom reflected their faces, like a little warmth in the urban night sky. The preparation work is gradually taking shape, and their determination has quietly strengthened in the process, waiting for the next challenge to arrive. The next morning, Yang Guang entered the library room in the villa, and Lin Hao and Su Wanqing had already moved into actual operations from last night's discussion. Their plan is like a tight net, waiting to unfold in the ripples of the city. Su Wanqing sat in front of her computer, using her family's secret passage to prepare anonymously submitting some of the money-washing certificates to a well-known financial media. Although this test action is small, it is the key to their revenge, which can detect Li Mingzhi's reaction speed and depth. Lin Hao stood aside, holding the monitoring list listed in his hand. His eyes were calm, and a complex feeling surged in his heart, thanking Su Wanqing for her company, and even more alert to the risk of this struggle. "It's done," Su Wanqing said, tapping the mouse tag and uploading the encrypted file to the media's anonymous appeal system. The file contains several details about Li Mingzhi's suspicious transfers, which is enough to attract attention, but does not expose all the evidence. She turned to look at Lin Hao, and the corner of her mouth slightly raised. "This is just the beginning, we have to start monitoring immediately." Her voice was gentle and professionally calm, which made Lin Hao's heart calm. He clicked on the head to respond and quickly opened the communication monitoring tool they set up. "This is the technical support provided by Su Wanqing's Family Resources, which can track specific target phones and emails." Lin Hao's business directly showed no signs at this moment. He quickly analyzed the potential risks. Li Mingzhi's reaction may be very fast. We must pay attention to his circle of allies. We must not let go of any abnormal movement. They spent the whole morning staring at the screen, and the aroma of coffee spread in the room again, as if they were their only breathing. In less than 2 hours, a news message appeared on the media platform. A report about suspected money-washing news named a company related to Li Mingzhi. Su Wanqing's eyes lit up. "It seems that our test has worked, and the media has begun to follow." Lin Hao tightly adjusted the monitoring settings, capturing the panic communication between Li Mingzhi's subordinates in the group. Those messages show that Li Mingzhi has ordered increased alertness and even began to investigate the source of the message. This made the atmosphere in the room tighten in an instant, and Lin Hao held Su Wanqing's hand. "Their counterattack will come faster, we need to strengthen the defense line." Su Wanqing had no sensibility and immediately contacted her family security team. They quickly deployed additional encryption measures, including changing communication tools and enhancing the villa's monitoring system. Lin Hao took the opportunity to adjust the strategy plan, update the original process map, and mark potential vulnerabilities. "If they try anti-monitoring, we can use fake information to guide them," he said, lingering with the wits of urban fighters. Su Wan heard it carefully, and a warm current surged in her heart. She leaned over and leaned on his shoulder. "Your insight always makes me feel at ease. We are not fighting alone." At this moment, their emotions were deeply connected in crisis, and their love turned into an invisible support, so that the flame of revenge would not be as rational as possible. In the afternoon, they received a reply from their family allies. Li Mingzhi's team was trying to make a plan, but the city's ripples had already scattered, and several media began to conduct in-depth investigations. This turnover made their plan more clear. Lin Hao suggested strengthening the certificate collection next, and Su Wanqing arranged the next safety meeting. They continued to tweak the details in the bookroom, and the noise of the city outside the window seemed to become the background music, reminding them that this battle was about to reach its climax. Their determination gradually became stable in the process and was ready to face the positive conflict that was about to come. In the afternoon, the lights in the bookroom reflected Lin Hao and Su Wanqing's tired and focused faces. Media reports are like an invisible storm that quickly spreads on urban networks, and previous anonymous complaints have triggered a chain of reactions. Several large financial media have begun to dig deep into Li Mingzhi's company, and reported more suspicious financial movements, such as hidden shore accounts and unusual shareholding transfers. This made Lin Hao feel a complicated premonition. Their testing actions not only successfully hit the enemy's key points, but also like a stone plunging into a pond, causing ripples. Lin Hao sat in front of the computer, quickly scanning the latest communication records captured by the monitoring tool. Li Mingzhi's subordinates panicked in the group to exchange opinions. Someone mentioned that allies began to move, and another complained about the pressure of the fund chain. Lin Hao's business felt as sharp as a sharp knife at this moment. He tagged several key messages and analyzed. Li Mingzhi's empire is breaking. His allies are not helping, but busy protecting themselves. Looking at this, the company has begun to withdraw investments. This is a sign of internal disintegration. His voice brought the coldness of urban fighters, and he couldn't hide a lot of fatigue. Su Wan listened carefully, got up and poured him a cup of coffee, and said softly, "You can always see through the appearance, that's why we can get to this point." She quickly adjusted her family resources and contacted the security team to strengthen her defense measures. In less than an hour, a new set of encryption software was installed on their systems, and the monitoring network around the villa was upgraded. Su Wanqing's movements were professional. She opened the family's internal database and dug out more evidence about Li Mingzhi, an old contract document showing that he had used control rights to cover up money-washing behavior. "This should be able to add our files," she said, copying the files to their plan folder. "If we submit them now, it will make the media's reporting more explosive." Lin Hao pointed at the same time, but a sensation surged in his heart. He recalled the past failures, and the shadow of the destruction made him wonder his decision. If we make mistakes in this move, we may expose more risks. Su Wan was aware of his uneasiness, and she walked over and held his hand lightly, her eyes filled with gentle determination. "Lin Hao, we are not facing each other alone. I am with you in this battle. We evaluate every step together. Your mind is my greatest support." Her words were like a warm current, resolving Lin Hao's suspicion. He took a deep breath, retuned his strategy, and marked the next action point. "Okay, let's continue. Let's use these new evidence to guide the media, and make Li Mingzhi's internal conflicts uncontrollable." They spent the next few hours carefully sorting out the data. Su Wanqing's operations made the whole process more efficient, and Lin Hao's analysis ensured that every step was accurate and without error. Outside the window, the city's lights were lit up, and the noisy street sound became the background music for their work. Their love quietly deepened in this crisis, no longer just a romantic support, but a fortress for each other. When night fell, they decided to take a break and prepare for tomorrow's full advancement, and everything was like a prelude to be released. The next morning, the smoke in the city had not completely dissipated, and Lin Hao and Su Wanqing had already turned on the lights in their bookshops again. The fatigue of last night seemed to be slightly relieved by the rest of the night, and their eyes fell on the files they had sorted out last night. Lin Hao picked up the coffee, took a deep breath, and felt Su Wanqing's hands cover his shoulders. "Today is a key day," she said, her voice soft and fulfilling. "We hand over the prepared certificates and let everything start to move." Her words were like a warm stream, flowing into Lin Hao's heart, allowing his urban warrior's instinct to wake up again. They quickly divided the work and cooperated. Su Wanqing first contacted her family's security team and media dependents to ensure that the documents were sent anonymously to several mainstream financial media and related supervisory agencies. The old contract that revealed Li Mingzhi's money laundering behavior and the abnormal share transfer were carefully packaged into a detailed report. Lin Hao was responsible for monitoring real-time reactions, so he opened the computer and tracked the movements on the network. In less than 2 hours, the first wave of reports began to appear. A well-known media published a headline, and the company named Li Mingzhi was suspected of money laundering and internal collapse. The stock price fell instantly, causing a market shaking. Su Wanqing looked at the data on the screen and smiled lightly. "Look, our stones have already been thrown into the pond, and the ripples are spreading." However, action is not a breach. In the afternoon, Li Mingzhi's retaliation arrived as expected. His men used private pipelines to exert pressure and tried to bite back, proclaiming that Lin Hao's past disruption incident involved in inappropriate operations, and even implying that Su Wanqing's family resources were used to control the market. Lin Hao sat in the office chair, staring at an anonymous threatening email, and a complex tangle burst into his heart. He knew that if he did not respond, these allegations might affect Su Wanqing and expose her to greater risks. Su Wan observed his watch, walked closer to him and held his hand. "Lin Hao, we're not fighting alone," she said, her eyes flashing with a gentle light. "If you need something, I'll carry it with you." Lin Hao thought for a moment and decided to make a difficult decision. He chose to publicize part of his past records as a testament to his innocence and protect Su Wanqing's privacy. This means he may have to give up the opportunity to rebuild his business, at least in the short term, facing more doubts. But at this moment, he felt that the love between them was like an invisible city wall, guarding each other. He turned to Su Wanqing. "It's all worth it for you." She didn't say anything, but just hugged him lightly. the tacit understanding between the two was even more profound in this crisis. At the same time, Su Wanqing carefully regulates family resources and strengthens their ally network. She contacted several reliable business partners to make them speak at the shareholders' conference and further amplify the impact of media reports. The shareholders' conference was in chaos, and investors were quarreling with each other. The image of financial collapse made his empire lose its desire. Although Su Wanqing's actions were effective, they also exposed herself to the wind. Some people in the family began to discuss her intervention privately. But she never retreated and turned this into an opportunity, quietly deepening her contact with Lin Hao. As the sun sets in the evening and the city's lights are rising, they sit on the sun, tasting a simple dinner. Lin Hao looked back on the progress this day and felt that the light of victory was gradually illuminating their lives. "We're going further and further away," he said, with a silence in his voice. Su Wanqing leaned on his shoulder and replied lightly, "Yes, but we will walk together on this road." In the night, their love was not just a romance, but also a fortress that supported them to move forward. They began to discuss the next step, carefully planning future actions. The hustle and bustle of the city continued to flow in the background. Everything seemed to be just a transition in this adversity. The next morning, the city's fog was covered with the tall building on the old roof. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing woke up from last night's discussion, and the coffee on the sun was still left with some warmth. They didn't have much time to sigh and quickly moved into the action. Lin Hao stared at the computer screen, recalling the determination of last night in his brain. He decided to contact a few old allies, those who had fought on the market first. He took a deep breath and cleared the first number after picking up the phone. "Old Chen, it's me, Lin Hao. When things are coming to a critical moment, I need your help." Mr. Chen at the phone was silent first, and then responded with a low voice, "I know what you are doing, brother. This time, I will stand by you." Lin Hao's plan is to make more evidence public and completely dismantle Li Mingzhi's defense line. He compiled a new document containing Li Mingzhi's early records of inappropriate transactions and hidden overseas account information. These certificates were his secretly retained trump cards after the bankruptcy, and now they have become his weapon for counterattack. Su Wanqing helped her to use her family's network to ensure that the data was safely handed over to the media and supervisory agencies. In the afternoon, news broke out, and the empire, which was reported by major media, was facing a complete collapse, and the chaos after the shareholders' meeting made everything worse. Investors discussed the discussion on the online forum, and the waves of doubts are coming like a tide. Lin Hao sat in the office, staring at the jumping stock price chart, and a difficult-to-speaking thrust in his heart. The pleasure of revenge does exist, but what about the price? His business reconstruction may be delayed and even face more legal disputes. He couldn't help but wonder whether his and Su Wanqing's future would still be as pure as before after all this was over. At the same time, Su Wanqing was busy fighting against the storm. She used her family's influence to contact several key figures in private to try to promote a low-key settlement. In her office, the phone rang and fell, and she served the other party with a gentle and determined verbal saying, "This is not a simple report, we need to protect more innocent people." Soon, she arranged an informal meeting to let Lin Hao's allies sit down and discuss the case with Li Mingzhi's representatives. Although Li Mingzhi's team attempts to counterattack, Su Wanqing's intervention was like a warm current of peace, controlling the conflict between the two sides within a controllable range. She knew that excessive revenge might bring endless problems, so she quietly pushed for the debate to make Li Mingzhi pay for the price and not let Lin Hao get deep into the quagmire. At night, they returned home, and the noise of the city came from outside the window, as if reminding them that this battle was not over. Lin Hao fell tiredly on the sand. Su Wanqing walked over and held his hand lightly. "Today's action was successful, but you look tired," she said, her eyes filled with concern. Lin Hao raised his head and replied with a wry smile, "Yes, I wonder, will our lives be covered by this shadow forever after these certificates are released?" They began a late-night conversation to share their inner thoughts. Su Wanqing heard his words, and then said softly, "Lin Hao, we are not living for revenge, but to protect the people we love." These tumblings make our feelings more realistic. In her words, Lin Hao felt a warm feeling, and their love was like a ray of light, illuminating the shadow of revenge. They discussed future plans and decided to gradually rebuild Lin Hao's career while strengthening their profits. The city's lights flashed in the night, and their determination gradually turned into inner peace, ready to face the days ahead. The next morning, the fog in the city gradually dissipated, and Lin Hao and Su Wanqing woke up from the conversation last night. The high-rise building outside the window was blinking golden light under the sun, and their determination was like the morning light, gradually illuminating the road ahead. The first thing Lin Hao did when he got up was to open his computer and examine the consequences after the publication of the evidence last night. On the stock price chart, although the volatility is strong, the trend has begun to stabilize with the support of allies. He picked up the phone and quickly contacted Mr. Chen and other old friends to discuss the next cooperation plan. "Old Chen, we need to expand this stock. Can your company provide technical support?" Lin Hao's voice was calm, with a burst of fatigue and enthusiasm. Chen answered quickly and introduced several potential investors. Su Wanqing listened on the side and silently remembered the details. She knew that this was the key moment for rebuilding the business. Su Wanqing is focused on resolving potential legal disputes. She used her family's network to contact several lawyers and supervisory agencies to ensure that Li Mingzhi's remaining strength could not be countered. In the afternoon, they went to a low-key coffee shop to hold a meeting. Su Wanqing served the other party with gentle verbal tutoring. "This is not only an end to the conflict, but also a path for the future. We must make everything legal and just." Her words were like a warm and peaceful current, relieving the intense atmosphere of the venue. Lin Hao looked at her handling of affairs, and a warm feeling surged in his heart, and the shadows of the past seemed to gradually dissipate in her calmness. After the meeting ended, they decided to use their new allies to gradually expand their cooperation, and Lin Hao's career reconstruction plan was also accelerated. The hustle and bustle of the city come out of the window, reminding them that although this battle has stopped, we still need to be vigilant. In the evening, they chose a riverside restaurant as a simple and romantic breath. The light shook, the river water slapped the shore lightly, and Lin Hao held Su Wanqing's hand, and for the first time he really relaxed. "Wanqing, over the past few days, I have always been worried that the revenge price will swallow us. But now, when I see you, I know everything is worth it." His words carried the city's sang, full of affection. Su Wanqing responded with a smile, her eyes flashing with a gentle light. "Lin Hao, our love is not accidental, but a lighthouse in adversity. It will purify all shadows and make us relaunch." They shared each other's dreams, planning to rebuild the company's future, maybe a trip or a brand new collaboration project. Although Li Mingzhi's efforts are still invisible, they all understand that warning is necessary, but no longer take charge of their lives. At this moment, Lin Hao felt the peace in his heart. Their dialogues do not only stay on the surface, but are deep promises, like the eternal starlight in the urban night. Su Wanqing leaned lightly on his shoulders, and the city's lights flashed around them, indicating a better tomorrow. In the words, they have begun to plan the next step, and everything naturally flows to the future direction. The next morning, the sun shone through the window and entered the room. Lin Hao and Su Wanqing woke up from the quiet night. The conversation the night before was still like a warm echo in their hearts. They quickly entered the operation. Lin Hao opened his computer and reviewed the cooperation plan agreed last night. Lao Chen and other allies responded surprisingly, with technical support and investment proposals coming. Lin Hao's voice was filled with the past, and he said to Su Wanqing, "Wanqing, our plan is about to start immediately. With these allies, rebuilding the business is no longer a dream." Su Wanqing smiled slightly. She had already contacted the lawyer team to ensure that Li Mingzhi's remaining efforts collapsed in the legal process. Her gentle words were determined. "I have arranged a final review, and everything will be legal and fair, so that we will not have any worries about the future." In the morning, they called allies to hold a meeting in the company meeting room. Lin Hao led the discussion, detailed the expansion plan, from technical cooperation to market attack, and showed his wisdom transformation after revenge in each step. Su Wanqing added details on the side and used the family network to coordinate resources to make the plan more complete. At the end of the meeting, everyone's eyes were filled with confidence. An old investor patted Lin Hao on the shoulder. "Your persistence allows us to see hope. This is not only business, but also a reply to justice." Walking out of the meeting room, the noise of the city seemed to become harmonious. Lin Hao held Su Wanqing's hand and said in a low voice, "The adversity over the years has made me cherish the light you bring more." Her response was like spring breeze blowing on her face. "Lin Hao, our love should have purified all shadows." In the afternoon, they decided to hold a grand celebration banquet, which not only announced the success of the reconstruction of the business, but also symbolized the complete collapse of Li Mingzhi's strength. The banquet was selected in an elegant hotel in the city center, with bright lights, including Chen and his allies who once supported them. Lin Hao stood on stage and said in a short sentence, "The past frame-ups have made me fall to the bottom, but love and justice have made me stand up. This is our common victory." There was a thunderous sound in the audience, and Su Wanqing stood beside him, his eyes full of pride and gentleness. During the banquet, they handled the final legal details, and the lawyer confirmed that Li Mingzhi's guilt was no longer possible and everything was settled. The night banquet turned into a romantic tale sound, and Lin Hao took Su Wanqing to the hotel terrace, and the city's lights flashed under their feet. He took out a simple ring from his pocket and said with a low head, "Wanqing, in the hustle and bustle of this city, you are my eternal Hong Kong. Let us promise by marriage and face the future together." Su Wan's clear light flashed and replied, "Lin Hao, our love has purified the shadow of revenge. From now on, we will only move forward for dreams." Their hugs were warm in the night wind, symbolizing the beginning of a new life. Since then, Lin Hao's career has expanded step by step, and Su Wanqing's wisdom has become his strongest pillar. They plan a simple trip, leave the city's struggles, and redefine happiness. At this point, the true love in adversity has turned into a glorious chapter. They move into a bright tomorrow, and the city's movement continues to move forward, and everything naturally blends into harmony.